Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when you realize this truth. Most people don't fail because of lack of talent, discipline, or opportunity. They fail because they give the wrong people access to the wrong parts of themselves. And today, I'm going to tell you something that will change the way you move forever. There are 3 secrets you should never share. 3 truths that smart people guard with their life, because the moment you reveal them, you hand someone else the power to control you. If you've ever felt drained, misunderstood, underestimated, or betrayed, then listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you will show you exactly how to take your power back, set unbreakable boundaries, and become unstoppable. Smart people understand something most people overlook. The world doesn't need access to everything you think, feel, or plan. Your life gains value the moment you decide to protect what matters instead of placing it into the hands of people who may not deserve it. There is strength in being open, but there is power in being selective. And today, I want you to understand the power behind never sharing 3 specific types of secrets, because real growth, real success, and real self-respect begin with boundaries. The first secret you never share is the real depth of your fears and insecurities. Not because you're pretending to be invincible, but because you understand that vulnerability is a privilege, not a currency. The world is full of people who haven't earned the right to hold your truth. Smart people know that when you openly expose your deepest wounds to the wrong audience, you give them the blueprint to hurt you. Strength isn't about telling everyone how you're struggling. Strength is choosing who genuinely needs to hear your struggles and who absolutely doesn't. Life isn't a stage for your weaknesses, it's a training ground where you learn who has the maturity to treat your vulnerability with care. When you keep your fears guarded, you stay in control, and you avoid handing over emotional leverage to anyone who might exploit it. The second secret you never share is your long-term plans. Your dreams require protection because big visions invite small-minded criticism. When you openly announce your goals before they're built, you expose them to doubt, envy, and unnecessary opinions from people who don't understand your ambition. Smart people move in silence not because they're mysterious, but because they know how fragile a dream is in its early stages. They know that noise kills focus. They know that people project their own limitations onto you. They know that the more you talk, the less you do. Understand this deeply. Not everyone wants you to win. Some want access to your steps so they can copy them. Others want insight into your path so they can block it. And many simply want to distract you before you gain momentum. Your goals deserve discipline. Your future deserves privacy. Let your actions speak before your announcements do. Let your results be the only explanation anyone ever gets. The third secret you never share is the pain you've already healed from. Smart people do not reopen old wounds for an audience that sees their past as entertainment. You are not obligated to relive the moments that broke you just because someone is curious. Healing is sacred. Transformation is personal. Growth is not a performance. There will always be people who ask questions not because they care, but because they want details. They want gossip. They want a story. But you're not a story. You are a whole person who fought battles they never saw. When you protect your healed pain, you protect your strength. You protect your peace. You protect the stability you worked hard to build. You don't owe the world an explanation for why you changed, why you distanced yourself, why you set boundaries, or why you walked away. Growth doesn't require an audience. Evolution doesn't need permission. As long as you understand the lessons your past taught you, no one else needs a front row seat to your history. Setting boundaries is not rude, it is responsible. Smart people don't set boundaries to push others out. They set them to protect what's within. Every time you choose not to overshare, you're showing the world that your value isn't up for casual consumption. You start commanding respect without raising your voice. You start defining your space without confrontation. Boundaries are the silent armor that guard your emotional, mental, and personal power. They tell the world, I know my worth, and I refuse to negotiate it. And here's what truly separates strong individuals from everyone else. They know that privacy doesn't mean isolation. You can be kind, open, and warm while still being selective with what you reveal. You can build relationships, trust people, and connect deeply without exposing your entire inner world. Being private isn't about hiding. It's about choosing. It's about keeping control over the parts of you that shape your life the most. When you stop oversharing, you gain clarity. You stop chasing validation. You stop looking for approval. You stop giving people access to your emotional triggers. You stop letting every opinion shake you. You become grounded. You become intentional. You become someone who understands that self-respect is built in the moments no one sees. The choices you make about what you protect and what you reveal. Think about how much energy you lose explaining yourself to people who will never understand you. Think about how much peace you could gain by keeping your private world truly private. Think about how much progress you could make if you stopped announcing your moves and started executing them quietly. Peace grows where access ends. Strength grows where boundaries begin. Smart people don't tell you everything. They show you something far more powerful: discipline, self-control, and emotional intelligence. When you master the art of not sharing what doesn't need to be shared, you become unshakable. People can speculate, assume, judge, or misunderstand, but they can never use anything against you because you gave them nothing to work with. Your silence becomes your shield. Your privacy becomes your strategy. Your boundaries become your strength. Never feel guilty for protecting your inner world. Never apologize for choosing silence over exposure. Never allow anyone to convince you that openness means oversharing. Real openness is intentional. Real confidence is measured. Real strength is quiet. Keep your fears guarded so no one can weaponize them. Keep your goals private so no one can interrupt them. Keep your healed pain sacred so no one can reopen it. Because when you protect these 3 secrets, you protect the most important thing you have, your power. And when you start protecting your power, something remarkable happens. You begin to move differently. You carry yourself with a quiet confidence that doesn't need to be announced. People feel it before you speak. They notice it without you trying. There is something unmistakably strong about someone who doesn't overshare, someone who has learned to choose their words with intention, someone who refuses to throw their inner world out into the open for approval. You shift from reacting to directing, from defending yourself to simply existing in your truth. You begin to realize that the more you protect your inner world, the more control you gain over your outer world. The noise around you gets quieter because you're not feeding it with explanations, emotional disclosures, or unnecessary details. You stop giving people the fuel they once used to judge, misunderstand, or criticize you. The moment you limit access, you limit their influence. The moment you protect your privacy, you protect your peace. And that peace is priceless. People start to notice that they cannot penetrate your energy the way they used to. You're not cold, you're composed. You're not distant, you're disciplined. You're not hiding, you're choosing wisely. This is the energy people respect, even if they don't fully understand it. It's the energy that says, I know who I am, I know what I want, and I am in control of what I allow into my life. That kind of power draws the right people toward you and naturally pushes the wrong ones away. You start to see relationships differ. You begin recognizing who has shown you consistency and who has only shown you convenience. You become more aware of who truly values your presence and who only values the information you provide. When you stop overexposing yourself, you see people's intentions with stunning clarity. The ones who genuinely care about you remain because your worth to them was never based on how much you revealed. The ones who disappear were never really there for you. They were there for the access. And losing those people isn't a loss, it is liberation. You no longer feel pressure to justify your choices, your boundaries, or your silence. Silence used to feel uncomfortable because you were conditioned to explain yourself. But now you realize silence is control. Silence is strength. Silence is one of the few things in life that no one can twist, distort, or use against you. You start to understand why the most powerful people reveal very little and achieve so much. They don't waste energy managing opinions. They invest energy managing their direction. As you embrace this new way of moving, you begin noticing shifts not just externally, but internally too. You start feeling mentally lighter. You find yourself more productive, more focused, and more grounded. You're no longer drained by conversations that used to take pieces of your peace. You stop replaying old dialogues in your mind because you've stopped participating in conversations that drain you. You stop feeling anxious about being misunderstood because you're no longer explaining yourself to people who don't matter. You finally see how much energy oversharing used to steal from you and how much strength privacy returns. You also become more intentional with your ambitions. You move differently when you don't announce every idea before it's formed. You work more, talk less, and achieve faster. You don't need applause. Why? Need results. You don't need validation. You need execution. You don't need someone to tell you to keep going. You need to keep going because your commitment is deeper than anyone else's understanding. The world doesn't see your grind, but they will see your growth. They won't know what you're building, but they will see what you built. That is the power of silent progress. And in that silence, you start to trust yourself again. You start believing that your instincts are enough. You start valuing your voice without needing it echoed by others. You begin recognizing that confidence doesn't come from telling people what you are doing. It comes from knowing you're capable of doing it without their input. When you stop outsourcing validation, you start importing courage. You become your own source of direction, strength, and resilience. You also begin to understand the importance of emotional sovereignty. You are no longer easily triggered because you are no longer emotionally exposed. You've learned to pause before speaking, to think before revealing, to choose with intention rather than impulse. You stop giving immediate emotional responses to people who don't deserve them. You stop allowing external situations to shake an internal foundation you've worked so hard to build. You learn to observe without absorbing. You learn to respond without reacting. You learn to be steady in moments that would have once derailed you. That stability is a direct result of choosing privacy over exposure. And somewhere along the way, you stop chasing relationships that require you to shrink yourself. You stop explaining your boundaries to people who never respected boundaries in the first place. You stop seeking closure from those who benefited from keeping you confused. You stop opening doors to those who only walked in to take, never to give. You realize that a selective life is a PE, aceful life. The fewer people who have access to you, the fewer opportunities there are for chaos to enter. You begin to appreciate the beauty of being misunderstood by the wrong people and deeply understood by the right ones. The right people don't need every detail to value you. They don't require your secrets, your wounds, or your insecurities to stay connected. They appreciate your presence, not your exposure. And because you're no longer oversharing, you start attracting those who value respect, maturity, and boundaries. These are the people who build with you, not break you. These are the people who protect your peace, not threaten it. These are the people who move in alignment with your growth, not against it. This shift also teaches you something essential. Not every question deserves an answer. Not every curiosity deserves a response. Not every person deserves your truth. You begin setting limits not with anger but with clarity. You don't lash out, you simply decline. You don't explain, you simply choose. You don't argue, you simply step back. You don't justify, you simply protect. Boundaries become a form of self-love, self-respect, and self-preservation. The more you honor these boundaries, the more you realize how many mistakes in your past were rooted in giving the wrong people too much access. You shared dreams with people who doubted you. You shared fears with people who dismissed you. You shared pain with people who weren't equipped to support you. You shared ideas with people who secretly competed with you. You shared your heart with people who didn't have the capacity to value it. But now you move differently because you know better. You stop seeking depth with shallow people. You stop giving loyalty to inconsistent people. You stop offering trust to careless people. You stop giving explanations to entitled people. You stop granting access to anyone who hasn't shown responsibility with what you've shared before. This is how you reclaim your power. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly and consistently. You become the guardian of your own energy, the protector of your own progress, the keeper of your own peace. And as you live this way, something even more powerful begins to unfold. You start attracting opportunities that match your discipline. You start experiencing breakthroughs that come from focus, not noise. You start seeing results that were once impossible because your energy was scattered. You begin building a life that reflects your strength instead of your struggle. You start stepping into a version of yourself that doesn't just survive, but thrives. This transformation isn't loud, it isn't dramatic, it isn't something you broadcast, it's something you become. A person who no longer feels the need to announce everything, explain everything, or share everything. A person who knows their worth without performing it. A person who leads with clarity, protects their peace, and moves with intention. And most importantly, you become someone who understands that privacy isn't about secrets. It's about sovereignty. It's about deciding what belongs to the world and what belongs solely to you. Because the moment you choose not to share everything is the moment you finally reclaim everything that makes you powerful. And as you evolve into this quieter, more intentional version of yourself, you begin to notice something else. The world reacts differently to you. People who once felt comfortable prying into your life start feeling uneasy because your silence forces them to confront their own behavior. Those who relied on your openness to gain access now feel blocked by a boundary they can't cross, and the ones who used to manipulate your emotions suddenly realize they no longer have leverage. You've changed the rules without announcing it. You've shifted the dynamic without raising your voice. You've taken back control simply by choosing what to withhold. You start to understand that not every part of you is meant for public consumption. Some things are meant to be guarded. Some truths are meant to be protected. Some experiences are meant to be held close because they shaped you in ways the world doesn't need to dissect. You don't hide your life out of fear, you protect it out of wisdom. You realize that the more selective you become, the more powerful your energy grows. You start valuing the parts of you that once felt ordinary, because you now see how many people wanted access to those parts without ever offering anything of equal value in return. And in that newfound clarity, you begin practicing something most people never learn: emotional self-respect. You no longer rush to explain your choices or your silence. You no longer feel pressured to justify why you pulled back, why you changed, or why you stopped entertaining certain conversations. You've matured beyond the need for validation. You've grown past the craving for approval. You've learned that your inner peace is more important than someone else's understanding. You start noticing how different life feels when you're committed to protecting your privacy. You feel more grounded in your decisions. You feel more confident in your direction. You feel more connected to your purpose. You stop worrying about who supports you because you've learned to support yourself. You stop fearing who will misunderstand you because you've learned that your truth doesn't require their comprehension. You stop sharing your dreams prematurely because you now understand that dreams need isolation before they need exposure. And while you move through life with this quiet strength, you also begin understanding the value of timing. You realize that there is a right time to speak, a right time to share, and a right time to keep things entirely to yourself. You learn that premature exposure can destroy what patience could have strengthened. You learn that silence during the building phase is not secrecy, it's strategy. It's discipline. It's respect for your own potential. You begin moving like someone who trusts the process, not someone who needs an audience for it. As you refine this skill, you start making decisions with a clarity that surprises even you. You don't second-guess yourself as much. You don't feel the urge to consult 10 people before choosing your next step. You don't seek opinions that will only confuse you. You become your own advisor, your own guide, your own anchor. You realize that the answers you once searched for in others were always within you. You just couldn't hear them because you were too busy talking. That stillness you've created around your life becomes a sanctuary. It becomes the space where your intuition grows louder, where your ideas become sharper, where your vision becomes clearer. You start hearing yourself again. You start trusting your inner voice again. You start believing in your own judgment again. And that shift alone can change the entire trajectory of your life. You also begin to recognize the importance of protecting the emotional progress you've made. There are people in your past who only knew the unhealed version of you. The version that overshared out of loneliness, the version that explained too much out of insecurity, the version that tolerated too much because you were afraid to lose people. And now that you've grown, they may try to pull you back into old patterns just so they can feel comfortable again. But you've outgrown that version of yourself. You are no longer available for conversations that drain you, people who disrespect you, or situation. At weaken your boundaries, you start setting a standard for how you expect to be treated, and you hold that standard without apology. You don't bend your boundaries for convenience. You don't lower your expectations out of fear. You don't silence your truth to make others feel comfortable. You've learned that compromising your self-respect is too high a price to pay for temporary approval. You've learned that protecting your inner world is not selfish. It is necessary. And as you stay consistent with this new way of living, something even more powerful happens. You begin to attract people who respect your boundaries without needing explanations. People who value your privacy without taking it personally. People who don't ask invasive questions, who don't demand access, who don't feel entitled to your story. These are the relationships that bring peace. These are the connections that feel safe. These are the people who recognize your worth without requiring your wounds. You start realizing that the right people don't need every detail to trust you, support you, or connect with you. They don't need to dissect your past to respect your present. They don't need to know everything about you to value what you bring to their life. These people aren't threatened by your boundaries. They're impressed by them. They understand that someone who respects themselves will always respect others as well. And while your circle becomes smaller, it becomes stronger. You begin to see the difference between those who want to be around you and those who want to know everything about you. You begin to differentiate between curiosity and care, between interest and intrusion, between connection and consumption. Life becomes simpler because the noise disappears. Life becomes clearer because your focus sharpens. Life becomes calmer because your boundaries protect you from the chaos you on. E allowed in. Your silence becomes intentional. Your privacy becomes purposeful. Your boundaries become permanent. You start to understand that not everything needs to be said, not everyone deserves to be informed, and not every moment needs to be shared. Some things are more powerful when they are kept within you. Some victories are more meaningful when you celebrate them privately. Some growth is more sacred when it happens away from the eyes of those who never truly supported you. You realize that maturity is choosing to let your actions speak instead of your words. You let your results reveal your discipline. You let your progress prove your commitment. You let your transformation demonstrate your resilience. You no longer feel the need to convince anyone of anything. You simply become someone who lives their truth quietly, confidently, consistently. And as this becomes your new normal, you begin to notice how empowering it feels to have a life that no one can interfere with, a life that isn't open for opinion, a life that isn't vulnerable to sabotage. A life that isn't dependent on praise, a life that is built on your terms, protected by your boundaries, fueled by your discipline, and guided by your peace. You start walking through the world with an energy that says, I know who I am, and I don't need anyone's approval to be that person. You start carrying yourself with a calmness that unsettles those who once manipulated your openness. You start becoming the kind of person who can't be intimidated, influenced, or controlled because your value doesn't come from what you share. It comes from what you protect. And in that silence, in that privacy, in those boundaries you've built with intention, you finally step into a level of strength that no one can take away from you.